So for those of you who are thinking about going to law school, you're not sure whether or not you want to take a year off, give yourself a little bit of a breather. I spoke to this earlier in another video. What we've decided to do is have one of our employees here who is in her gap year, about to finish up and will be going on to law school, talk to you about her experience here at the firm, as well as the sort of the pros and cons of taking that additional year off.
Hi, my name's Ariana and I'm one of the legal assistants here at the Fitch Law Firm. I started at the Fitch Law Firm back last July, so we're coming up on a year, crazy enough. I studied at OSU. I studied English and Spanish with a minor in public policy, and I graduated in May of 2024, so also coming up on a year. Going into undergrad, I knew that I wanted to go to law school. It's kind of always been a goal of mine. Junior year came around and it was time to start the process, and I realized it was getting a little stressful. As a first-generation college student, I didn't really have anybody to kind of guide me or help me, figure out the process. So it was something I had to do on my own, on top of managing my academics in general. And so what I found was that I was really stressing myself out trying to manage everything at the same time. As junior year came to an end, it was time to decide if I wanted to apply to law school, if I was going to be taking a break. I had never considered taking a gap year, but as I started to look into the application process, I realized there was more to it than I had initially thought. So as I was finishing my academics and looking into the process, I started considering taking a gap year more and more. And as I looked into it, it actually seemed like something that would be super beneficial to me. Before I made the decision to actually take a gap year, I put a lot of thought into what I would actually be doing in my time. I ultimately decided that I was going to take a gap year. It was a decision that came kind of naturally the more I realized how stressful the application process is, and I just wanted to give myself more time to make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward when I start law school. Even though I had kind of made up my mind that I wanted to take a gap year, I was still a little hesitant to solidify that decision and share it with my peers, just because it can be a little scary. There's a lot of stigmas that come with gap years. Sometimes people think that you might take a gap year and not return to school, and it can also be scary to think what you're going to do with your time. I know my parents gave me a lot of pushback. They were worried that taking a year off and working and making, money or traveling was going to be more appealing than the thought of going back to school. And those were all things that crossed my mind, but ultimately I did decide that a gap year was going to be the best for me, especially because I was experiencing pretty severe academic burnout, and I figured that if I went into law school feeling how I was feeling from undergrad, I wouldn't be presenting the best version of myself, and I thought that taking a gap year would kind of give me that mental break that I needed and the refresh that I would need to start new and start law school on a good foot. So once I had my mind made up that I was going to take a gap year, my next step was to determine what I was going to do at that time. I looked into possibly traveling. Of course I'd be studying, but I really wanted to do something that was going to benefit me and look good when I decided to go to law school. It's not a big deal to take a gap year. It's more important what you decide to do with that time. And for me, I decided that I wanted to work and find experience that would be beneficial to me in my career down the road. And that's how I ended up here at the Fitch Law Firm. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a legal assistant here at the Fitch Law Firm, and I really enjoy what I do. I have lots of responsibilities and it can be kind of stressful, but it just helped me solidify in my mind that a career in the legal field is what I want to do. Some of my responsibilities include case management, talking with clients, helping the attorneys out with anything that they need. Working in a law firm, I get firsthand experience at all of the behind the scenes things of all the things that you're essentially learning in law school. I feel like it's been really beneficial to see how attorneys work and how communications work in different relationships with clients, all things that you wouldn't necessarily get from law school, but because I decided to take a gap year, I now have all of these experiences under my belt. While I think I could have been successful had I gone straight to law school from undergrad, I think that the experiences and the people and connections that I have made here have been super beneficial to my career overall. Not only have I built my legal writing skills, my professional skills, I also feel more confident in all of my abilities as I have a new learned knowledge that I wouldn't have had before had I not decided to take a break. One of the biggest drawbacks that I've experienced from taking a gap year is the comparison that I make between myself and those around me. Several of my peers went straight from undergrad to law school, and so as my gap year is coming to an end, they are all ending their first year of law school. school. And it's hard for me sometimes to not compare myself and think that had I not taken a gap year, I would be entering my second year. While I sometimes doubt my decision to take a gap year, I'm so happy that I decided to do so because I know that it was the right path for me, as I've learned so much being here. And while my counterparts are in school and they're learning, I feel that my experience here is also going to be extremely beneficial to my career. And when I ultimately do go to law school, I think that I'll be more than ready. Another big factor in my decision to take a gap year was the LSAT. The LSAT is one of the biggest components when it comes to the law school application process, and it's a really big test. And as somebody who's not the best test taker, I was really anxious when it came to taking the test. It was really hard to manage my undergrad academics and study for the LSAT at the same time, and I felt that I wasn't putting enough effort into studying, and therefore my scores wouldn't reflect my abilities as much as it could. So when it came to making a decision, I knew that in the gap year, I could take all of the time that I needed to study and prepare for the LSAT. That way, when it was time to take the test, I felt like I was actually putting my best foot forward. The decision to take a gap year can be a really big one, especially with the influences of all of the people around you, but the biggest thing to remember is that it's your decision. At the end of the day, you are the person who has to go to law school and sit in the classroom and make all of the decisions that come along with going to law school. So when you're deciding if you want to take a gap year or not, make sure you're actually considering the things that are best for you and what will be best for your path.